Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We spend a lot of time in this show digging into the technical weeds of cybersecurity, things like firewalls and zero-day exploits. And those are definitely important, but
Yeah.
today we're doing something a little different. We're going deeper.
Oh, deeper. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we're talking about the human side of cybersecurity, specifically the stress that comes with the territory.
Right, because we're not just talking about code and algorithms, are we?
Not at all. We're talking about the people, the actual humans who are on the front lines defending our digital world. Exactly. And to really get into this, we're diving into a couple of really insightful articles: Stress Management and Cybersecurity, Tales from the Front Lines, and Stress Management and Security Engineering, Detection Engineering, and Incident Response. Hmm. Because let's face it, the work that security engineers, detection engineers, and incident responders do, it's high stakes. I mean, talk about pressure. Both articles actually use this really vivid analogy. They compare the cybersecurity work environment to a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, right? This pressure cooker analogy. It's not just about the long hours. It's the weight of responsibility, that constant feeling of being on edge.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you use the word weight because one of the articles actually compares cybersecurity to other high stress fields, like healthcare. Think about surgeons or ER
Oh,
doctors.
totally. They're making life or death decisions.
Exactly. You're dealing with critical systems, people's data, the potential for major consequences. But cybersecurity, it adds another layer of complexity.
How so?
Well, the threat landscape itself is constantly shifting. Imagine a doctor having to invent new surgeries because diseases keep mutating in real time.
Wow, that's a terrifying thought.
That's kind of what it's like in cybersecurity. You're always playing catch up, always having to anticipate the next move.
And it's not always some big faceless organization at risk either, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the articles had this story about a security engineer at a startup, just one person responsible for everything.
Oh, I remember that one. They were basically the entire security department, building everything from scratch while also handling any incidents that popped up.
Talk about pressure.
It's a prime example of how even in a smaller environment, the weight can be immense. And, that feeling of being solely responsible, that is a one-way ticket to burnout city.
Burnout is a huge issue.
It really is. And for anyone listening, no matter your role, recognizing the signs is so important. Exhaustion, getting cynical, feeling less productive, these aren't just part of the job.
A warning sign.
Exactly. That story, the engineer actually ended up leaving because it all became too much.
Which is a loss for everyone, the company, the industry. It really highlights how important this is. This isn't just about bits and bytes. These are real people's lives.
Mm.
And speaking of different roles and how they experience this pressure, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the folks building our defenses. Security engineers, I mean, they're trying to build these impenetrable fortresses, but they always know that even the smallest crack can be exploited.
It's true. And one article I read used this phrase that really stuck with me, the flawed encryption odyssey.
The flawed encryption odyssey, what's that about?
It highlights this idea that a single oversight, maybe even a single line of code, can have these huge ripple effects.
Oh, wow.
It's not about placing blame, or it's just about understanding that weight of responsibility.
So how do they deal with that, knowing that there might always be something they missed?
It's about managing risk. You can't eliminate it completely. Security engineers, they use rigorous testing, build-in redundancy, think backup systems for their backup systems.
Wow, so many backups.
Right, and they have to constantly be learning because the threats are always evolving. Some engineers even intentionally introduce vulnerabilities in controlled environments.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They intentionally create weaknesses.
In a way, yes, almost like a sparring match to see how their defenses hold up.
Oh, that's fascinating. They're basically using their knowledge of attack methods to strengthen their defenses.
Exactly. They're always trying to stay one step ahead. And speaking of anticipating the next move, that leads us perfectly into our next role. Detection engineers.
The folks who have to find the needle in the haystack, right? Sifting through tons of data looking for that one anomaly.
Exactly. And the pressure of potentially missing something, it can be immense. One source I was reading described it as a deluge of data.
Deluge of data. I like that. It really captures the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Right. It's like trying to spot a single counterfeit bill while standing in a blizzard of money.
That's a pretty intense visual. So how do they even
Right.
begin to cope with that? It reminds me of those movies where the air traffic controllers are staring at a wall of blinking lights, except here, those potential collisions are digital.
It's definitely high pressure. Detection engineers, they rely heavily on automation and machine learning to help sift through all of that noise and flag anything suspicious.
Right, because you can't have a human looking at every single bit of data, can you?
Exactly. But even with the best automation, you still need that human element, that intuition to connect the dots, to spot patterns that might slip past algorithms.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's not the individual data points, it's the bigger picture they paint.
Right.
That-
And on top of that, it's not just about recognizing a pattern, it's about recognizing it fast enough. I think it was Tales from the Frontlines that mentioned a team battling a new type of malware. And it seemed like every time they came up with a new detection rule, the malware adapted.
It's like a constant arms race.
It really is. And that brings us to those who are often the first on the scene when those defenses are breached.
You're talking about the incident responders, right?
That's right, the ones who have to make those split-second decisions under incredible pressure.
The crucible of time-sensitive decisions is how one article put it, which I thought was a great way to describe it.
It really is. They're dealing with potentially huge consequences, financial, reputational. And they often have to do it with very limited information.
It's like being thrown into the cockpit of a crashing plane and being told to land it safely, except you've never flown a plane before.
That's a very accurate analogy. And that's why having predefined incident response plans is so important.
So it's like having a playbook for an emergency. It doesn't eliminate the stress, but at least there's a plan to follow.
Exactly. Even with a plan, though, the emotional toll can be huge. I remember reading about an incident response team facing a ransomware attack. They had to decide whether to pay the ransom or risk losing critical data that could impact thousands of people.
Oh, wow. What a decision to have to make.
Right. And that's why it's so important to talk about the human cost of cybersecurity. This work, it takes a toll, mentally and physically.
It sounds incredibly demanding. So we've talked about this pressure cooker environment, the unique stressors for different roles, but it's not enough to just acknowledge the problem, right? What can we actually do about it? That's the big question, isn't it? Because we can't just say, oh yeah, cybersecurity is stressful and then leave it at that.
No, absolutely not. The good news is there's actually a lot we can do, both as individuals and as an industry.
Okay, so where do we even start?
Well, let's talk about individuals first, because there are some really practical things that people can do to manage stress better.
Like what?
One of the articles actually had a whole section on mindfulness and stress reduction techniques, things like, meditation or deep breathing exercises.
Oh yeah, those are supposed to be really helpful.
They really can be. Even just taking regular breaks throughout the day, stepping away from the computer screen for a few minutes, it can make a world of difference.
It's so easy to get sucked in and just work for hours without coming up for air.
Exactly. And then on top of those individual things, there are also some key skills that can really help. Learning how to delegate tasks effectively, setting boundaries, and not being afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Because you don't have to do everything yourself.
Right. Cybersecurity especially, it's such a team effort.
So we've covered what individuals can do, but what about organizations? What can they do to help create a healthier environment?
Well, it really boils down to one word: culture.
Culture.
Yeah, and it starts with leadership, right? They have to recognize that employee well-being is absolutely essential.
Because, burned out employees don't do good work.
Exactly. In fact, the article that mentioned that company that implemented a wellness program, they saw a 30% reduction in stress-related absences.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It goes to show that when organizations prioritize well-being, everybody wins. And it's not just about offering perks or, having a ping pong table in the break room.
It's about creating an environment where people actually feel supported.
Exactly. Where they feel comfortable talking about stress and burnout without being judged.
And where they can actually use their vacation time without feeling guilty.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the power of technology in all of this. Because it's not just the source of the problem, it can also be part of the solution.
How so?
Well, one of the articles talked about using things like AI and automation, not to replace human analysts,
Right.
but to free them up from those repetitive, mind-numbing tasks that contribute to burnout.
Oh, that makes sense. Let the machines handle the boring stuff.
Exactly. Freeing people up to focus on the more complex, more engaging work.
The stuff that actually requires human intuition and creativity.
Exactly.
Wow, so it really does sound like there's a lot that can be done to address this, both on an individual level and an organizational level.
That really is.
And if there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from all of this, it's that you are not alone. Cybersecurity is a tough field. It's demanding. It's high pressure. But by supporting each other, promoting open communication, and advocating for our own well-being, we can create a much healthier and more resilient future.
I love that.
So for our listeners out there, here's a little challenge for you. What's one small thing you can do this week to prioritize your own well-being?
I like it.
Maybe it's trying one of those stress reduction techniques we were talking about, or finally setting some boundaries, or even just reaching out to a colleague to chat.
Because we're all in this together.
We are. And on that note, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and most importantly,
Take care of yourselves.
see you next time.